All right, everybody, welcome back to yet another conversation here with Small Jobs Electric. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing on why does my breaker keep tripping. So I'm here with Carla
Hi.
and Lewis,
Hello?
one of our top technicians, and we're going to be being drilled by Carla as she's going to be asking us questions about why does the breaker keep tripping. And so we're going to hopefully have some good answers for you.
And this is a really important question because the number one electrical question that gets Googled or asked to ChatGPT is why is my breaker tripping? So we're going to get the burning answer to that question. Why do breakers trip and what is it trying to tell us? So before we get started into the reasons why they trip, I think it's important to discuss what is a breaker? Where is it located in the home?
Yeah. So a breaker is basically that device that's inside your electrical panel. It's usually located in the garage, but it could be in a utility room, could be in a panel outside your home, but it's inside of an enclosure. And it's basically designed to detect overcurrent or a short, a standard breaker at least.
So it's that thing that's in the electrical panel. It has on and off.
Yep.
So if it's tripped, it'll be off. Sometimes it gets stuck in that middle position, right? So that can cause issues. So what are some of the reasons why breakers trip?
Overloads. I mean, if it's a standard breaker and it's just looking for the standard things, it's either a short or could also be an overload if a lot of people have been adding things over the years to the same circuits or wiring things off of the same circuits and the proper load calculations haven't been done for that circuit. I mean, you could have a lot of overloads going on in your house.
Yep. And then there's the newer breakers, the arc faults and the GFIs. Those function differently, but also provide those same basic functions as the overload and the short, but they're designed to like detect arcs. Whereas a ground fault detector or GFCI, you might identify these around your home, maybe in your bathroom, in your kitchen, or in your garage. It's got the little reset, and you just reset the button there. They also make those in breakers, the breaker version, and those are just basically designed to detect if there's current flowing somewhere other than where it's intended to. So if I got power going, this much power coming over, I should have exactly that much power coming back. And if there's any variant to that, then it trips.
Is there any place in the home that you guys see people overloading circuits the most?
Kitchen.
Kitchen is one of them. Also bedroom, especially if your house doesn't have good heat in the wintertime. You know, a lot of customers, they'll buy space heaters and things like that, and they'll start plugging them in. But you only have one circuit going to your bedrooms a lot of the times. And if you have two space heaters, one on each side of your bedroom, I mean, that's an easy overload there for a lot of customers.
Yeah. The kitchen,
Yeah.
kitchen's a big one, especially in older homes. The newer homes are designed with those factors in place because we have a lot of appliances.
Mhm.
Those what we call small appliances. They sit on the countertop, toaster oven, microwave, coffee pot. Oftentimes if we're making breakfast, we're doing stuff. Maybe we're having friends over, so we have multiple things running at the same time. So the code requires we have at least two circuits in the kitchen now. But houses that were built in like the 50s or even the 70s, they didn't have all those conveniences that we have today and as many of them. So when you run multiple things on one circuit, you're going to overload the circuit, and that's what the breaker's for. It's there to protect the circuit from an overload.
Yep.
Protecting the wire, which actually protects the appliances as well, protects you from having a fire. So all the way around, the breakers are pretty important, essential thing to a home.
So what happens if a circuit gets overloaded and the breaker doesn't trip?
That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a big problem because then your wiring starts to heat up. It could melt. It could create a home fire. I mean, so many different things can happen. You can hurt appliances that are connected down the stream from it. So it just depends.
Yeah. And there are certain brands of breakers that are like known industry wide, like every electrician knows, Federal Pacific, Sensco breakers. There's,
Challenger.
yeah, Challenger. And they all have like different nuances as to, why they don't function properly. But the one that sticks out the most is the Federal Pacific breaker. If you had like a 20 amp circuit breaker, it would allow, 50 or 60 amps to flow through it without it tripping, or maybe it would never trip. I remember going out to one home in the Carrollwood area, Old Carrollwood here in Tampa, and there was like a short, and it turned into a whole like torch flame fire like coming out like this out of the electrical outlet, and it was a Federal Pacific breaker. It never tripped, and so like these are and these there are literally thousands of homeowners still in Tampa Bay that have these old electrical panels that they need to get it replaced. And when they get an inspection, like homeowner inspection come out or they're trying to sell their house, they're gonna tell them they gotta replace it anyways. And they're living with this hazard.
Oh yeah.
That's scary.
Imagine if your couch was right in front of that. I mean, that's cloth.
Yeah. Fire hazard for sure. So, any other reasons why breakers trip?
So with newer breakers, AFCIs, they're gonna detect loose connections. A lot of these newer homes, they get built very fast. So these outlets that they're installing, they either have two options for you to wire them. You either put all the wires under a wire nut and land two wires into the actual outlet screws, or you can stab lock them into the back, which is the worst type of installation in my opinion.
But that's the one we see the most.
That's the one that
like
we see the most because it's quicker and
90%.
faster. So you're left with all these fail points behind your outlet, and over the course of 10, sometimes even 8, sometimes even 1 year, they get loose, the breaker starts detecting it, and they start to arc up and they're tripping.
Yeah.
And homeowners think maybe it's a bad breaker. Maybe it's I'm overloading it, but sometimes we have to go in deeper into these problems and troubleshoot, and we actually come to find out these outlets are burning up.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any crazy stories of anything that you've seen with shorts in homes and the damage that they cause?
I went to a call the other day where same situation. It was a tripping breaker, normal house. It wasn't older than 10 years. I pulled the outlet out and the connections behind it were burnt up. Now, that burning, if it lasts for a very long time, I mean, you could have the wire burn all the way back to the insulation, and if we can't replace it now, we have to rewire that circuit. It wasn't to that extent, but that is something that we ran into there. For a home that wasn't too old, it's definitely not an issue that you should be having this quickly.
It's sad, but it's true. You got to, again, like I mentioned on another episode, electricians aren't perfect either. They make mistakes. So it's why it's important. Like we come out, we do a safety inspection, check the electrical panel, because we've gone out to like brand new houses and like the feeders that are going right into the main breaker are not, properly tightened down and they're loose, and like the wires just completely burned up and the insulation's all falling off. Clearly they've been having a problem for a while, but that they're just getting around to realizing how serious it is. So they call us out
Yeah.
to take a look at their issue, and get it resolved for them.
That's why resetting the breaker sometimes just isn't going to cut it. Breakers are tripping for a reason. They're trying to tell you something. So a lot of the times it could lead down to something as dangerous as that.
Yeah. And people want to, oftentimes they think they just go to the store and buy a bigger breaker and put it in there. That's a big no-no. Like, first of all, if you're putting a bigger breaker in, you should be in the panel because you clearly don't know what you're doing. And that could be a hazard in itself, creating a hazard for yourself and for your home and your family. Because, the wiring in your home's only rated for, a certain amount of amperage. It's like general lighting in your home and outlets in your home, 20 amps is the most that you can have. And people think, well, let me go buy a 40 amp breaker or a 30 amp breaker. And yeah, the breaker won't trip now, but now you're putting a lot more strain and everything on that circuit, which can eventually lead to a fire.
The way I like to put it is that the breaker has to be married to the actual wire. So it has to be rated for that size only. And
Yeah, for that circuit.
so
Yeah, whatever
installing
it
a bigger
is.
breaker, that's just asking for a fire hazard.
So the bottom line is breakers don't just ever trip for no reason. I think that's a common misconception maybe homeowners have sometimes.
Mhm.
That breakers do trip and it doesn't mean anything. But at first, it can be difficult to find what's causing it to trip, especially if it's like an intermittent issue.
Mhm.
But eventually, that will become more persistent. So when the breakers trip, it's for a reason. It's really a cry for help from the home. Your home's saying, "Help me, save me. There's a problem somewhere," and you
Yeah.
got to find it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, whenever a breaker trips, there's always a reason. maybe a big reason, could be a small reason. It could be that you're running, multiple appliances at the same time. Maybe the resolution for that situation is just talking to the homeowner and tell them, hey, if you just don't run these appliances at the same time, because every house, doesn't matter how old it is, it can be a brand new home, and you can
Mhm.
overload the circuit.
Yeah.
You just run too many things on that circuit. So each situation is different. Like if it's an older home and like the only circuit they have in the kitchen is one, and as it is, it's sharing with the dishwasher and the garbage disposal, which is already a code violation. Those things need to have their own circuits anyways. Then we're going to make recommendations. We're going to let them know, hey, based on your situation, we need to add some additional circuits, split this up because you're going to keep having problems. And if they continue down that road where they just keep resetting the breaker or replace the breaker and put in a bigger breaker, then they're gonna have a fire at some point.
I went to a house the other day with a similar problem, and it ended up being a wall unit AC, 20 amps, connected on the same circuit as the microwave, which should be on its own dedicated. They both should be on their own dedicated 20 amp circuits, but they're sharing it,
Hmm.
right? And as well as the lighting in the kitchen. So yeah, once you're running those two things together for a long period of time, it's bound to trip.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've come across, besides the dishwasher and the garbage disposal
Mhm.
being on the same circuit as the outlets in the kitchen, is you had the hood fan, back in the '80s and before we didn't really have microwaves too much. Most
Right.
people didn't have microwave unless you were like wealthy
Mhm.
in the '80s. But they would take the hood fan down and think that they could just use that wire that they had for the hood fan for the microwave. But that hood fan was connected with the circuit for the countertop, and a hood fan only draws like less than an amp. And now we go in, we install this microwave that goes over the range, and that needs a dedicated circuit because it draws 15 amps, in some cases 16 amps, and so that's a dedicated circuit. Now we're putting all that extra strain on a circuit that was never designed to have a microwave and a toaster oven or a coffee pot running at the same time. Then they wonder why their breaker's tripping.
So we talked about overloading the circuit, very, very common reason why. Probably, would you say one of the most common reasons why a breaker trips? Or
No, I think there are definitely other issues too. Short,
so
overcurrent.
shorts, we talked about shorts. Any other reasons why breakers trip?
Old age. I mean, it's a given factor. If you have breakers that are 50 years old now, and I mean, things tend to wear down. They could lose their strength. That could be another factor in there as well. It's a little bit of a lesser issue, but that could be another factor there as well. Old age can definitely take a toll on these breakers.
Yeah, and if you get a big fault, in the neighborhood, an issue from the utility company or something like that, even vibration can cause a breaker trip. There's like a little spring inside there, so if something like really powerful, it's like in the area, maybe lightning right
Mhm.
outside the house. There's a lot of energy there. That vibration. If you ever felt like your walls feel like they just shook a little bit because of lightning strike, that can cause a breaker to trip. Inadvertently, that's not what they're designed to do for that application, but that's what happens.
Surges. You just mentioned it with the lightning strikes. I mean, our breakers are getting smarter. They have technology in them. So surges, they can affect these newer breakers and they could cause them to either not trip or trip all the time if they break the internal components in them and things like that. We had a technician go out to a house the other day where every other breaker in the panel had an issue with it. When he
Yeah.
would press the button, it wouldn't trip. It would actually start smoking on the backside of them.
Yeah. I got the
You want to
video of
touch on
that.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I got the
Want to
video.
touch on that a little bit?
So it actually turned out to be that the people that have 3 different units in this high rise here in
Oh, it's a
Tampa.
high rise.
It's a high
Mhm.
rise, and they had, 3 different units, and in all 3 units, it was the same phase. It was the B phase. So I know for some of us folks, we don't know what that means, but basically we have 2 hots coming in. So one of the hots had a surge at some point. So it caused every other breaker in his electrical box to go bad. And it wasn't just in his unit, but it was the other 2 units he had as well. So likely the rest of that building probably had the same thing.
Yeah.
But like when he would test the breaker would start smoking, start making funny noises, and it was literally every breaker that was on that face.
Which is good to do the inspections. I mean, we don't know what's going on in our homes until you have a professional come out and actually test these items. And, per manufacturer, a lot of them, they require you to exercise your breakers and test them every amount of period. periods of time. So that was a good thing that we did there for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's 6 months. Every 6 months, you
Yeah.
should exercise your breaker, and,
So
like
should the homeowner be exercising their breakers?
I mean, they can, as long as
Mhm.
they're not taking the cover off, they could theoretically, turn the breaker off and turn it back on. I will preference that with just like if we came out there or they came, if you have an electrician come out and do it, if there's an issue, he's able to detect and let you know what the cause was.
And
Um,
he's also able to fix it
yeah,
because,
he's can
like you
fix it.
said, Sam went out to that situation and he was able to repair the issue at that time. It's not something that had to wait. It's not something that probably could have waited. There's smoke coming out of
Yeah.
it. So by having the electrician, because sometimes when we go to, a lot of times when we go to someone's home, we'll want to do the panel inspection before we leave just to make sure everything looks good. And people don't always understand why we do that, or they think it's, just to upsell them on something. But it's really for their safety and protection because then we can look at their panel, make sure what we're leaving them, you know, everything's safe. They can have peace of mind knowing that we checked the panel. We didn't just come in and, replace a light switch. We also checked their electrical panel, make sure everything looks good for them. And that gives them peace of mind. It's not an upselling technique, it's really for their protection and for their safety because we find stuff all the time when we do panel inspections that are not safe that could have led to a fire.
Yeah. Although we're gonna make, of course, if we do find something that's of concern, we'll, let the homeowner know, what the problem is, why it should be addressed. Take a picture of it, show it to them. It is part of obviously the point of doing the safety inspection, but we never like make up stuff in just to make a sale or something like that because that's not how we operate.
So, is there anything else that homeowners can be doing for the longevity of their breakers that they should know about to keep their breakers? Because one of the reasons why they trip sometimes is due to the age, and maybe they haven't been exercised. So they're breaking down. There's an end point for everything. So, is there something that homeowners can do to help extend the life of their breakers or their panel?
Well, you could extend the life of your electrical panel, by just simply replacing the breakers themselves. So, like, kind of once you hit that 25-year mark, um, you probably should be looking at replacing your breakers, or at least consult with a licensed electrician to come out and take a look at it. A lot of times, the bus bar can get damaged as a result of not replacing the breakers because just like I'm sure everyone here has it, at least some of our audience has an electrical outlet in their home that when you plug in something to it, it doesn't hold any longer. It's because those connections in there have gotten weak because of the usage. And so, all that current is flowing through that breaker to that circuit, and those connections get weak on the bus bar. And with time, that loose connection starts to arc. And depending on the amount of load there is, a small arc can turn, into a fire very quickly.
And if you mount the bus bar on your panel, now we're not talking about a breaker replacement. We're talking about a panel replacement at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to upkeep them and make sure that you have tight connections going onto those bus bars, and that way that power doesn't go anywhere else.
So, by doing the maintenance on it, by having a professional look at it, it actually can save you money versus in the long run having to spend more money if the bus bar is damaged. And then you're looking at a much bigger job.
Yeah. So it's all about that maintenance.
Yeah.
You can extend the life of your panel, by getting those breakers replaced. And you can't always see what's going on inside the breakers either. Like there's no not going to take your breakers out and send it to a laboratory and check and
Yep.
see if they're working properly or not. That does not make sense. And I mean, there's a reason why too. Like the most manufacturers only offer like a 10-year warranty on their breakers because they realize that they're going to start failing. They're not going to start working after a certain amount of time.
So, is there anything else anybody needs to know or should keep in mind about why breakers trip or what the causes of that is?
Just don't ignore the problems. If you have tripping breakers, just give us a call. I mean, there's always a hidden truth behind it that we might be able to uncover. They're there for a reason and they're meant to do one job, and it's to protect you in your home.
Yeah, and if you're living outside of the Tampa Bay area, call your local, licensed electrician and come out to your house, have it checked out, because it's letting you know there's an issue. But to sum it all up, I'd say, just remember these things. Why did it trip? Were you doing anything when it happened? Was it because you're running a bunch of appliances? So you can kind of self-diagnose it a little bit yourself there. You overloading circuit. Maybe you need to change your habits of what you're doing. If you don't know why it tripped, that would be more alarming, and you need to probably call somebody out right away, get that looked at, so that this way it can be determine what the cause of it was, and how what the remedy is, and what can be done to fix it.
All right, so I think we got our answer. Why is your breaker tripping? Is it for one of those reasons we talked about? Give us a call if you need help and you're in Tampa.
Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on our next episode.